Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the HGLRC Petrel 75 Whoop. This comes in both a 1S and 2S edition, but we're going to be looking at 2S in this particular case. And if you wanted to, it does come in a kit, which is probably what you saw in the thumbnail. It has a case too. But let's cover the quad, then we'll cover these other parts second. Powering the Petrel 75 are 0802 12,000 kV motors on 40mm tri-bladed gem fan props. Motor shafts are 1mm thick. The board that we really can't see down in there is the Zeus 5 all-in-one, and it does 1S as well as 2S, and it is an F411. Got a peek at the VTX back in here, and that is the Zeus Nano, which is power switchable from pit mode, 25 milliwatts, 100 milliwatts, 200 milliwatts, and 350 milliwatts. Cadix and FPV camera. The 1S version comes with the same style of motor, but it's 22,000 kV. It weighs just a touch over 34 grams. Inside, I flew it on this little 2S nanotech battery that is 300 milliamp, and with that battery, it weighs 51 3/4 grams. Outside of the recommended battery is 450 milliamp 2S battery, and I have this one from G&B. That brings it up to just a touch over 63 grams. Motor post to motor post, I'm getting 75 millimeters. I forgot to mention it, but the all-in-one board does not include a receiver, so it's just a two-in-one board. So it's just a two-in-one board, an ESC and flight controller. So I have an FrSky XM Plus down here. With mine being shipped to me as a kit, I'm not exactly sure what's in it, so check your packing contents when you look at the web pages for this product. I've got a little USB-C PH20 connector. It also came with these two adapters so you could charge your batteries. Came with a right angle USB adapter, which kind of don't need because the USB port's right there. It did come with an extra set of props. 3 extra canopy screws. And this was kind of weird. I got a Beta FPV prop remover in my bag. Surely I didn't put that in there. And a screwdriver. Do note the battery tray is kind of big, so I put a little piece of relatively stiff foam in there to secure the battery. I did end up breaking the tray a little bit. It still holds the battery fine, but that breakage may be because of my foam. Okay, of course, I have to go with the inside flight first, because inside is what I enjoy most when it comes to these whoops. And that's kind of where I see whoops, but I do know that they're flown outside as well. Some people are just whoop maniacs, like all those iGal guys out there. They're always out there doing all their tricks outside and inside with their whoops. But I think whoops might be the most popular category in quads. At least the Tiny Whoop group is the largest Facebook FPV group I am aware of. So that's something to be said for whoops. This one here is 2S, and I think as far as the starter kit goes, I think you probably want to go with the 1S kit because throttle management on 2S can be pretty tricky, especially when you're starting out, and even 1S throttle management can be a little bit challenging. You know, if you've got special skills and you've played video games all your life, maybe not. Who am I to say? Just kind of a word of caution that if you get the 2S version and you want to fly it in your house, that you may find the throttle management a little bit of a challenge. I prefer 2S in the house. I do know that our house is sizable. You know, we've got 3 levels, but we don't go upstairs in this flight, and our reception is also quite good. I get asked a lot about inside reception. One thing is, you know, goggle modules matter. I'm using a rapid fire module, and I've got a true RC and an AXI antenna on that module. And then inside the house, I fly race band 8, which puts us up above the Wi-Fi band. And then, of course, I've got the VTX maxed out at 350 milliwatts. So, and we have an open floor plan with traditional sheetrock and wood construction. So that hopefully explains how I get the reception that I get. We're going to take this outside, and we're going to do a little sampling on the outside flight. I don't really fly these things, as I said, outside all that too much. It's probably because where I live, there's a fair bit of wind pretty consistently. Although you can fly them outside, I just don't find that as enjoyable. Of course, I am in a very fortunate position to where I have a number of quads that if I want to go fly outside, I can choose something that's prop protected. It might be this small, but without the prop protection, things just fly so much differently. Again, this is on a 300 milliamp battery, so if you go to, say, a 450, like what is recommended, of course, if you're starting out, you're going to be flying a little bit slower. So I wouldn't be surprised if you got a 4-minute flight, probably even over that, especially flying indoors. It's all going to depend upon how you fly the quad and the quality of the battery and the care of the battery. So there's a lot of variable in there. And you're probably looking at my land now going, you need to land, but wait for it. Go back to the table. I've flown this thing a lot. I know what I'm doing. So there you go. Batteries bouncing back on disarm to over 3.5 volts per cell, which is exactly what we're looking for, at least what I'm looking for, in a flight time of 2 minutes and 43 seconds. So on a 450 milliamp battery, we would get, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect inside, flying like I was flying, probably get another minute. Problem is, I can't fly for another minute and pull off that flight. So I'm going to play my outside flight over there. It's not a beautiful flight by any stretch, but it should give you some basis for how it flies outside. Of course, 2S is going to emit more noise. Inside, the noise level is going to be accentuated because, you know, it's bouncing off all the hard surfaces inside the house. Outside, it's going to sound a lot more quiet than you experienced inside. So outside of the breakage here, I really don't have any other breakages to report. I didn't see anything break. Oh, I remember. I did replace, there it is. I replaced one of these screws because I broke the standoff, which is not unusual in Whoops. It happens. The standoff broke in one of the crashes. Hopefully you can see that's the little bit that goes kind of where the screw is, but this screw that I'm using is an M2 screw versus a threaded screw that has a point to it, so it's kind of self-tapping in that regard. Would go down to this post, and this post would be attached to the frame. I've experienced this a lot. Let me know if this is a struggle that you guys have as well. I think Tobias had posted on Facebook that he was looking for a frame with more reliable posts, but this is something that I've experienced on a bunch of different frames. So well, it's disappointing. It's not unusual. I just took a longer M2 screw and drove it down through there, and that pretty much took care of it. You can see my M2 screw is sticking all the way out the bottom. So that's going to be more hardy that way at any rate. So if you happen to break your Whoop, whether it's this one or another one, that is a possible fix depending upon the frame you have. You know, if you get too big or too close to an edge, it may split out and may not do you any good. One of the things that I'm always curious about when it comes to these canopies, when they have this soft mounting, you can't hardly see it. There. I should show it on the other side, because on this side it catches. I can't get to go back up. But let's go around to this side. See how it squishes down there? That's the soft mounting that we've got around the all-in-one flight controller. I'm always thinking about these things and, you know, is that affecting my video? Because I did, obviously, when I broke this post, have some pretty shaky video. Something else that, it's a curious thing to me. They've got, hopefully you can tell, it appears they've got a screw area that could go right in this canopy here, and of course we have a post that lines up for it. And I tried to get a screw in here. I actually took the camera screws out, shoved the camera back, and I tried to get a screw in there down, and I don't think there's any sort of hole here where you could get a screw down through there. That was something else that I was thinking about doing, because that will secure the canopy. You know, flying Whoops inside, we tend to go under stuff, and so hitting the canopy, especially a proud canopy like this, is going to happen fairly often. I did turtle mode this, and it worked out just fine. I did turtle mode it a lot. It's not something that I encourage you to do, but it's something that I'm oftentimes doing because, you know, if I test it and it works out, then I can report that. I still caution you. Oh, I've got some grass in the prop here. I need to clean that out. See that? That's not good for our motors and props. Anyways, then I can report that to you so you can have some measurement of how robust the ESC and motor combination is. If I test it and it burns out, then that's a different sort of measurement. You know, that's what I'm trying to protect you from, is if you turtle mode and you have an obstructed prop, that you could burn a motor and ESC like that. It can go real quick on turtle mode, especially if you're heavy with the stick. Some people have that feather touch and can do it reliably and can tell from looking through the camera, the goggles, that, you know, they have an obstructed prop or they don't. So, you know, those of you that are experienced in this stuff, I'm not like preaching to you. For those that are maybe new, I just want you to be able to fly your quad as long as possible. And because this does come in an RTF kit, then it's one of the things I have to consider. I want everybody to have fun. I do wish this battery tray actually properly held a 450 milliamp battery. It's just slightly too big. I mean, you can get away with it without foam, but as you can see, you know, it moves around in there. So put a piece of electrical tape on your battery, maybe, if that's what, you know, acceptable to you. It's not going to take much, but of course these wrappers on these batteries are very, very slick. So I don't know why I have a 3S battery out here. Sorry about that. These batteries are very slick, that wrapper packaging. So a piece of electrical tape may be all that's needed. I just use that foam wedge, and I think this foam wedge, along with all my crashing, probably resulted in this. By the way, if you've got a Whoop and you're looking for repairs, I highly suggest getting at least a tube of welder. And it does look like they've updated their packaging, obviously. Yeah, I don't go very long without making sure I've got some welder on hand. And this one, I thought I tore the tube when I was unscrewing the cap one day, so I immediately bought some more in case this one dried out, but this one's still okay, so I've got spares. I'll link this down in the video description. I buy them from Amazon. I know not everybody shops from Amazon, but that's where I get these. I think they're like $8 for 2 tubes like you see here. Oh, don't forget, that's for professionals only. I think using the Caddx Ant light, that's one of the better light cameras that we have on the market right now. The Run Cam has a wider field of view. I wish we could get the both of the image quality of the Caddx Ant, specifically the Ant light for me, as well as the wider field of view. I just like wide field of view when I'm flying the little guys because it gives me a greater sense of speed. It's a false sense of speed, but it still makes it awful fun. I didn't have any troubles with the receiver or binding or anything like that. You know, it's pretty typical stuff. I think I probably just had to take my paintbrush or my hex head and just push the button and then plug in USB power. You know, however you do that, you know, it's usually a two-handed operation. I usually find a way to do it by myself. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll take something like this and I'll put it down through there so it sits flat. So then I've got, this isn't exact, you know, I would take this roll out of my, I had to use a lot of packaging recently because all those giveaway boxes. But anyways, so I would typically take this roll or keep an empty roll around so that I could plug in my USB power while I've got that button pressed down. That seems to work out pretty good. So having an empty tube roll around, don't throw those out. Keep that around. That could be your hobby tube. Duct tape rolls, whatever kind of rolls, it'll work. The 350 milliwatt VTX didn't seem to be very strong outside. I was a little bit thrown off by that. It could have been my rapid fire module. I've noticed from time to time with specific quads that the rapid fire module has tough time syncing. I'll usually force it to use the rapid fire mode instead of legacy mode 1 and 2. So, you know, that's something to consider in my review process. I didn't heavily go through the process of testing the VTX. I'll show to you what I got. There is at least one sync lock in that outside video. This does yaw wash out. I think we need some work on the PID tune there a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the time you're seeing this, HGLRC has changed the PID tune, because I actually got the original Petrel 75 some weeks ago, but it burned out a motor because the motors are 17,000 kV. They're a little high kV. I think the highest I've seen on 2S Whoops for an 0802 motor was 14,000 kV, and I think these are 12 if I remember correctly. I just did the specs a minute ago. Yeah, these are 12. I think I've seen 14,000 kV. So these were 17,000, and while it flew fine and flew well, it didn't last long before I burned out a motor. And props to HGLRC, you know, I reported that, and they immediately came back and said, well, I shouldn't say immediately, you know, it was 24 hours or whatever. They came back and said, hey, we're going to change out the motors. We'll send you new motors. And then a couple of weeks later, this one came. So you probably haven't seen too many 2S reviews. You probably have seen plenty of 1S reviews. Hopefully those have given you a measurement of whether you're interested in this product in a 1S conversion or not. And now with the 2S side kind of covered, now you know whether you're interested in the 2S side of things. Let's cover the rest of the RTF kit. So in the video, I am using the T8. So if you've noticed the flying wasn't quite what you expected, you know, I'm using a radio that's not my primary. So it takes a little bit off of your flying. For me, and this radio, I think it's a pretty good starter. It's got good construction. I've covered this radio before. I actually covered the Pro version, which has a little flip out screen. This can do both D8 and D16 modes, so you would be able to do this as well as other Whoops and other D8 mode SPI based receivers with this. It's, you know, it involves pressing that button that's down in there. It's a little bit wonky in that regard. You have to have the sticks in a certain position to be able to bind in a certain mode, and it's all very well written in the instructions. So if you find your instructions aren't meeting your needs, go online and look at the online instructions. They're generally a little bit lengthier than the quick start guide that you get with a lot of these kits. We have the typical 2-position switches everywhere. These are actually 3, sorry about that. And then where's our USB port? I forget now. We charge this thing somehow. Where's that at? Oh, it's under here. Here we go. So we use that USB-C port to charge. It has an internal battery, and then we have a trainer port over there. Obviously, this is a dummy port here. There's no antenna. I don't even think there's an antenna that you can... Well, you could modify it, I guess, to have an SMA and mount one there and then have a regular antenna. But I think for starting purposes, this is going to work out just fine. It's... You know, as far as radios go, it's going to be completely serviceable. And in RTF kits, they are... You know, aimed at a price point. So this is, while it's not the lowest cost radio out there, it is a lower or budget. But, you know, to give you some point of view, I don't want to skew you too much. I use this $80 radio as my everyday flyer. And I have much more expensive radios. I just find that this fits my hands better. I feel like I like the gimbals better. I feel like I fly better with it. So I fly with this. This is comparable to it. I mean, in price point and form factor, but you know, it still meets a budget point. Okay, the goggles. So I've got a little recording here I'm going to play. This is a cell phone interpretation of what the screen looks like and the reception in the flight outside. Hopefully that gives you some sort of measurement for the reception. But of course, you know, I say this all the time, and I'm sorry that so many people have heard this before. I'm not trying to be repetitive in these reviews, but reception is going to vary a lot. It's going to vary depending upon your environment. Are you close to a cell phone tower or any other sort of RF interference? How heavy is the greenery? Did it recently rain? Your humidity in the air is up. Are you flying around an area that has water near it? You know, I've flown around water a couple times, but I would think the humidity would be even higher if you had a body of water near you, and therefore your reception wouldn't be as good. You know, water and the 5.8 transmission, they don't get along. So those things all play a role. I'm not trying to make excuses. That's universal across our hobby, is that flying environment and your reception matters a lot. Of course, there are things you can do to increase your reception. That is by getting higher quality antennas. And as you can see from this little guy, it just has these rubber ducky antennas. The goggles are fine. They're serviceable. I had a hard time using them. I do not have 20/20 vision. I wear eyeglasses, and it's not unusual for me to have a difficult time in focusing. These are smaller goggles than other box goggles, so you're not going to be able to get glasses in here unless they're really super small glasses. This space in here is really quite tight. It does not have a DVR. It has most of the other features that one might look for. It does have a cutout for your nose. I didn't find it was hurting my nose, but again, that's going to vary depending upon the shape of your face and the size of your nose, whether it either leaks light or your nose bumps up against this. I didn't have any problems, but you kind of have to measure your own self. We've got the channel, bands, menu, and then again, our USB port up here. That is how we charge. It does have an internal battery. You know, again, budget starter goggles that are going to be very, very serviceable. They're better than the goggles I started with 5 years ago, by far, and a whole heck of a lot cheaper. I couldn't tell you exactly what mine cost, but I think I spent upwards of $350 by the time I had my box goggles, and they were Quantum V2s, I think. They had that Fresnel lens that you slid back and forth, and invariably humidity would get on the backside of the Fresnel lens, and there was nothing you could do about it. You just had to sit there and wait for it to go away. Those were the days. So these are very small. They're very sleek. And as far as box goggles, that's kind of the opposite of what most people find. Box goggles are generally very large and are sizable. This looks less like a box and more like an extended FPV goggle view. But serviceable goggles for most people. I think if you don't have 20/20 vision, box goggles are going to be an issue, and you're going to have to find higher quality box goggles that have a higher quality lens for a clearer image for you to be able to focus on, or you're going to need to be able to wear your glasses inside the goggles. And for all those that thought I forgot, it comes with stickers. For those of you that made it all the way to the end, especially the veterans out there, what do you think of this Ready to Fly kit? Because Ready to Fly kits are always something that we get a lot of questions about, and I would certainly like to have some additional input from many of you that have flown a lot of things, started out maybe at the same time I did, and experienced some of those horrible box goggles that we used to have. But what are you thinking as far as a Ready to Fly kit? I've seen a few people on other videos kind of put together a wish list of different components to have for a Ready to Fly kit, and we haven't seen anything that I can recall matching. But this seems to be pretty good ready-to-fly kit. Of course, the quad, you get to see that yourself and how it flies and whether it's for you or not. Again, this can be bought in a 1S or 2S and can be bought all by itself. You don't have to buy it with a ready-to-fly kit. They just sent it to me as a ready-to-fly kit. I think the biggest shortcoming in not placing this maybe higher on your list or my list might be the goggles, or the visor, or whatever you want to call these. The image is okay. You know, if I pull them out away from my face a little bit, I can get it to focus so I can at least see and kind of get my own feel. But without getting my nose in there and actually being able to fly focused, it's hard for me to really judge. But this form factor of goggle, we've seen it in a couple of different varieties, and maybe some of you have experienced it. It's not heavy. I don't mean to re-review the goggles, but you know, sometimes with these goggles, they can have an excessive battery in the front and the screens in front, and they can really pull down. I didn't find that to be the case. The foam around the front's fine. So anyways, I was hoping that I could bait some of our veterans out there, people who started on maybe a ready-to-fly kit or started on something that was comparable, and kind of put together what you think of these components as far as their usability and for someone who's getting started and how long they can use them. Of course, if you are getting started, this radio will work on a number of different FrSky quads, whether they're D8 or D16. And so will the goggles. You know, it's 5.8 VTX analog stuff, so it won't work with DJI, it won't work with SharkBite, but as far as our traditional small quads, analog video transmission, these will work with those universally. So, if you would, you know, help others out, let them know what your thoughts about this kit are. Give some feedback to HGLRC. Maybe there's a magic combination in there and they can work out a business deal with another company to put together a dream kit of some sort. Who knows? Maybe some other company comes and watches the video and they see the comments about a dream RTF kit and they put it together. You know, it's really up to them on what they want to do. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.